literally, I don't have it now, but I literally stole the bracket. I stole it because we were the 4 undefeateds left. There's only 4 undefeateds left. And out of all these guys, we were the only California team left in the winner's bracket. We were the only California team left in the winner's bracket.
Welcome to the car ride home. I'm here with Marty Tyson, the founder of the Corona Angels, also one of our Alliance Fast Pitch board members. And Marty, I do this, this is the 4th episode. I'm pretty pumped that this is your first podcast. But every once since the car ride home, I want to set the stage. So I'm sure you've spent many car rides, whether as the athlete or as the dad, as the coach. So first off, what are we listening to? What kind of music are we listening to on our car ride?
Well, you know, the crazy thing is, with all my kids, we all would we'd all sing Fire and Desire, and so man, by Rick James and Tina Marie. So we'd all have our verses, you know what I mean? So that was, you know, that enjoyed that song. It was like one of our favorite songs with all my kids, you know what I mean? So we all had, all my kids were like different in age. Like Dena's 10 years older than Dena. Dena's 5 years older than Victoria. So, you know what I mean? So it's the last 3. We had 3 kids in 5 years. So it's the last 3. So Dena, you know, it's probably why Dena had all her kids back to back, because she felt like basically she was like by herself, you know?
But they all listen to the same. I like that.
Yeah.
Back. What about, so after a tournament, we got to stop to eat. Where are we stopping to eat in the car ride?
Well, you know, we like Kentucky Fried Chicken, something like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, always, my wife loves In-N-Out. So, you know, just really who is really gonna make a decision. You know what I mean? That's a big part of it, you know? So man, just again, you know, it always depends on how the weekend went or whatever. So they always dictate that. And always, you know, again, it's nothing to brag about, but it's just what it is. I've always, since I was playing Little League, I've always been a sore loser. You know what I mean? And so, man, even as, you know, as an adult, I've always been kind of like a sore loser. So I'm like, man, let's get home. Let's get on a plane. Like, you're out of state, you know what I mean? When's the next flight out? You know what I mean? Like, understanding it. You know,
depending on if you win or lose, that's where it depends on where you're going, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's funny. We were when we had the COVID, you know, PGF didn't go, and so we did the ASA Nationals in Virginia, and so we had 2 14s go, and so anyway, my 14s took 3rd, and our other 14 team made it to the national championship. And I'm like, oh man, so I had to go out there and sit through it all. You know what I mean? I had to go and like, man, you know, sit and support them, you know, Corona Angel, you know what I mean? They're still Corona Angels. So man, it was like, man, they wind up taking, Felton Olson coached that team there. They wind up taking 2nd. Those kids now are seniors. So those kids that was on, like, you know, we have basically we said those group of kids made Felton Olson in our program because they were like, you know, they beat my team and they finished ahead, and so man, those kids, and I have some of those kids on my 18 team now, and when we did our senior day, all those kids like took a picture together. You know what I mean? I was like gonna go over there and slug them. They all took a picture like, hey, we were the team, you know what I mean? We were the team that finished higher than me, you know what I'm saying, at Nationals. So they take great pride in that.
That's hilarious. We're going to get back to even some of the alumni and things that you do. So with it being a car ride, and I think I've heard you tell a couple of stories. When I tell you the car ride home, that could be from practice, tournaments, games. What's one of the most memorable car rides that you turned into maybe a teaching lesson with one of your daughters?
Well, I think it's always, I would even, because it wasn't on a she wasn't riding with me. It was a crazy thing is Dena, as a sophomore thing, she played in the CIF championship game, and man, she was always an outfielder in travel ball, but she had played 4 years of shortstop in high school. So anyway, they were playing Jessica Vanderlin's team, and Dena, Jessica went to Florida State and Player of the Year, all the garbage that she did. Well, anyway, Dena had a couple hits and this, that, and the other. And man, during the game, she had booted the ball, and man, it kind of cost them the game, right? And then her travel ball team was in Arizona in a qualifier. So that was a Saturday, and I'm like, your team needs you in Arizona. So, dude, she lost the championship game Saturday, and man, we flew her out to Arizona for a qualifier for her team. And I had, in between all that, I had wrote her a letter and told her, like, man, what a great, just a learning experience of that, one, being in that position and doing it for your team and doing all those things. And then understanding that in 24 hours, your travel ball team is trying to qualify for nationals. So it's understanding it. And so that was a big thing, and our team qualified. And, I didn't drive with her. I didn't fly with her. So, you know what I mean? So it was just all those things of, okay, man, you want to put down something that's going to inspire them to continue to go and understand, like, it's a big loss in her life. So probably one of the biggest loss in her life at that point of her life. And then understanding, like, okay, how do you move on from it and what you do? You know what I mean? So that was a huge thing. And so, man, but plane rides, you guys, this is before, they don't have it as much as they did. That's why there's a reason why I don't watch or listen to social media, because I had lost 3 straight national championship games in 3 different age groups. So people were calling me like Marty Levy, you know what I mean? Like, dude, it's crazy in 3 different age groups. So, man, I lost the national championship game. I got double dipped in 10s. Then we did 12s. We made it to the national championship in 12s. Then in first year 14s, we made it to the national championship in 14s in Georgia. And then in Iowa was my 4th national championship, and we finally won one. So, man, and then we had to come from the if game. So that was like, even in that, it was like, so you start understanding that thought process. So, man, it's all those experiences with all those kids, you know what I mean? And so I say, like, we're talking about a car ride home, because the car ride is anything. I think that the year that we wanted all those kids on that team that we had lost in the backfields, and this is crazy to say, but I'm just gonna say it the way it was. I hadn't lost at a nationals. I hadn't lost before Friday. I'd never lost before Friday, and so that was the first time that I'd lost on Friday. I lost before Friday, and so, man, we're in the backfields, and I told our team, we're not done and we're not embarrassed. And I made them walk through the whole park. We walked from the backfields all the way through the front. Like, our cars were parked by the back of the fields. I made our team walk through the whole park back to the front. And we came back and won 11 games and won it all. But I'm just saying, like, you just talk about those things of doing and understanding the thought process. And so those things were, a lot of times we're saying, my daughters, I was telling them I was doing a podcast about the drive home, and they were like, my daughter Dominique said, oh, it wasn't really the drives homes, it was in the backyard. That's where everything took care. That's when neighbors would come over and, like, hey, is everything all right over here? You know what I'm saying? Like, you start understanding that thought process. Because, man, if it was a bad thing, you know what I mean? They would jump in the car with their mom real quick. You know what I'm saying? So, man, you start understanding the thought process of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And it's, COVID was all my kids are gotten older. So, like, COVID was where we weren't playing in California, and we were going to Arizona like every other weekend. And we was driving and man, in that year, like, me and my daughter Dominique, we had, man, I'm a numbers guy, so I always like to talk finances with her and with the kids. And one time, Dena, and Dom went to a qualifier. We went to a qualifier in Arizona, so we drove together. You know what I mean? And so, like I say about being a bad loser, that, you know, man, we had lost that team that won. They're juniors now. So in our first qualifier, we all drove with Dena and everything, and man, dude, I'd lost, and I went straight to the hotel, and Dom was sharing the room with me, and we drove, and man, I'll forget to eat. So man, I'm like, man, I wake up, it's like 8:30 at night, and I look at Dom on the other bed, I'm like, damn, dog, you hungry? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, dude, I hadn't even ate. Like, Dom's like, damn, Dad, thank God. You know what I mean? Like, dude, like, so I hadn't even ate. Like, you know what I mean? I probably got a 6-pack and went straight to the room. You know what I mean? But I had Dominique with me. So man, that was a lot of things. You know what I mean? You start understanding. So man, those drives were amazing. And then I was old enough to drive.
I want to go back to the competitor, because obviously that probably stems back from you and your playing days. Where does that competitiveness come from that you still have up to this day?
Yeah, it's you know, being around a bunch of people. Like I say, I'm gonna give everything that we do to Bob back. Like, you know, again, you know, I came from a baseball factory. You know, Ontario High School, we had like guys get drafted. You know, so man, it was just the standard of ball, and then the people you're playing with were amazing players. So it just taught, and then, but just a spirit of just in your mindset of not losing. You know what I mean? So man, like, dude, no matter what, just losing has always been a tough thing for me to swallow. You know what I mean? And so man, in Little League, like, man, just throwing things and this, that, and the other. So I say, man, my first year in the minor leagues, I would go in and I would tell my kids, I tell this all the time to everyone, like, this is the first person that told me I was insane, but wasn't the last person, you know, is that, man, I'm up here tearing up everything in the dugout, throwing bats. I'm mad, right? I'm in Pikeville, Kentucky. And my manager tells me, says, dude, you're absolutely insane. You're coming up there and doing the same thing over and over. You're coming up there, making the same mistake. You're making a mistake over and over. And then you come in here and expect a different result. You're absolutely insane, Tyson. And I'm like, man, I said, man, that making the same mistake over and over and not expecting a different result, like, that's insane. So I say, man, that's a spirit that's kind of like been with me. And so, man, it ignites you in everything that you kind of do.
I love that. I think I was that player too, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I never let Dena win, you know what I mean? And shoot some ladders. Like, no, if you're gonna win, you're gonna earn it. Like, so I instilled that in my kids. Like, no one was, I didn't give them anything. And I raised 4 daughters too. Like, nah, you're gonna have to win. And you know what I mean? And like, it's funny, we had these big ass boxing gloves or during Christmas, and we were messing around, and I was like, I was messing with Victoria, and I accidentally gave Tori a bloody nose. Like, man, like, boom, like, yeah, oh my God, like, we're just messing around. So, you know what I mean? So I instill my kids to the winning is winning, and there's you know, second is second, you know what I mean? And so that's what you understand the thought process, and so you start having that, and that, and I think that all of them have that inside them about, at the end of the day, one, what it takes to win. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing is about winning. It goes hand in hand, and I think that gift is the hard workers, the people who work the hardest. Those are the people who win. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you can't sustain winning without the work ethic first and the mindset. So, you know, it goes hand in hand. So that's a huge thing about what we try to do here with our kids.
Well, Marty, I want to go back to starting Corona Angels. And obviously you've mentioned you have 4 daughters. I would imagine that goes back to Dena, but what was your vision? Go back to, was it 1998 when you actually started the Corona Angels? You know, what was that for not only Dena, but for all the athletes and for all your daughters to go through?
Well, and I say about starting the Corona Angels, one, is, and I say this a lot, is that, you know, I was coaching Dena, my first, as I tell everybody about, you look at success, you know, my first travel ball team was the Gold Rush, right? The Corona Gold Rush, and we were 12U. And man, I didn't realize that, well, I had all 11-year-olds. I mean, I had all 12-year-olds, and I had one 11-year-old. So we went to Amani Springs, Florida, and we wind up taking 9th that year. Like everybody, they see us all, these old guys. I'm an old guy now, I'm 58, but I started in rec ball like everybody else did. So I basically took my all-star team, and we became the Corona Gold Rush, and Dena was the only 11-year-old on the team. So we had a great year, took 9th, and man, only had one player left. So I'm like, dude, and so everybody looked like this. The people are so confusing that they look at the Batbusters and Corona Angels, but Mike is one of my closest friends. And so Mike did it the right way. He had younger players. And so then Dena played 12U that year with Mike, because Mike had the youngest returning team. And so then she played with Mike for Tough Enough. You know what I mean? And so then from there, Dena was a 7th grader, and it was crazy because, you know, this was before when we had the good birthdays, September birthdays, before we went to January. And so Dena was a 7th grader, but everybody was on the team was a 6th grader. And people were telling me like, man, that's crazy though, because you got to realize Dena's playing, because of her birthday, that Dena was allowed to play 12s when she was a 7th grader. And everybody was like saying, yeah, there was only 2 7th graders on our team. Everybody else was 6th graders. So Dena played, and Napoleon Sparks, I give him all the credit in the world, because I wasn't doing anything. My daughter went and played for Mike, and I was sitting here, and he came to my home and he says, bro, you did a good job coaching. Do you want to continue to coach? And I'm like, I don't know. Because you got to realize I came from all brothers. So I didn't the softball was just like getting going, and it was my 2nd year in travel ball. So I'm like, yeah, I'll coach. And I started coaching SoCal Crunch and coaching SoCal Crunch with Nap. Dena came over and played with us. So I had Dena for 2 years. And then I'm going to say what we're doing is like understanding that what we're going to do and start over. Start over was this, that now I had 4 daughters, and my plan was to give each kid 5 years. So Dena was now 14. And so now it's like, all right, we're gonna start something. But Dena played, and Dena started playing for Del Moore, and they were in Simi Valley, and we live in Corona. And I was like, man, I want to start something local where we didn't have to drive all these hours. And so thus I started the Corona Angels. So it was like, man, for the 15 freeway, I'm like, man, I'm gonna own the 15 freeway. Like, I'm gonna focus only on the Inland Empire. You know what I mean? Like, man, show the Inland Empire, because, you know, Orange County's a power, San Diego's a power. And I'm like, I am going to focus on the Inland Empire, and I'm gonna develop something out of here. So I was like, the best players in this city, in this county, I want to try to keep them in our program. So yeah, absolutely.
I would say you've done that. Well, it's
kind of done a pretty good job.
Even because I watch you coach now, and it makes so much sense of, you came from all brothers. You were an athlete yourself in a locker room. I do want you to talk eventually about even being a correctional officer too.
Absolutely.
But how that has inspired and influenced how you coach girls. Like, do you remember, was there ever a shift? You're like, I need to take it easier on the girls, or nope?
Yeah, well, see, there we go. That it's crazy that at the end, I would say, like, it was my 3rd year in softball where you start thinking like this about girls, that they don't care how much you know, they care how much you care. And so girls are different from boys in that respect. So, and it's like the people, like you say, the people on the outside don't really know us, know me. They see me on that field, and I'm like, oh my God. But as you go, I tell everybody who come over here, like, man, all right, you're on the honeymoon. And I also put pressure on them, not pressure, but I would say is this, I'm like, when will it be time that you kind of get what we're teaching you? Like, you let me know when it's like, you're going to be accountable, like, cool. Because when they first get here, I'm like, man, like I have a new player on the 8th grade team. And, you know, I'm a guest coach on the 8th grade team. And so we were playing a couple weeks ago, and one of the parents had said, oh, I want to get that Marty that she gets. And I says, this kid has been in here for 3 weeks. Your daughter's been hidden for 3 years. So you want me to talk to her like someone who's been hitting with me for 3 years? No, your daughter has been. And I said, and that's probably the biggest problem, that you instead of you being angry at your daughter that she's been hitting here for 3 years and the other kids here been here for 3 weeks, that you thought they would be kind of treated the same. They just wouldn't. So that's what I tell everybody when people first come, they're on the honeymoon. Then like this, because girls, they want to know that you care for them. Girls are way more loyal than boys. They'll go through a wall for you. Once they know, like, dude, at the end of the day, I want you to live your best life. I really want you to prosper in this, not just in this game, but in life. And so, man, that is the biggest thing. And so is that, and the thing that makes your heart warm about this is that, man, my players, I get invited to weddings. And so, man, and these are like Rainy Gaffin in Florida, Destinating West. We're going to a wedding next month, you know, man, for Alexis Osorio in New Mexico, in some resort in Mexico. You know what I mean? It's like, man, that thought process, that I went to the Howard UCLA game, man, that me and Dena threw out the first pitch, and to see that Stephanie Rosa heard that I was going to be there. And, you know, Stephanie Rosa, she graduated in 2011. You know, it's like, dude, almost made me cry seeing her. You know what I mean? And that's the whole deal of who we are, is like being a family. And so understanding that, and I'm like I say, with Dena, I promised my wife, it's so crazy to think like it's going to be 11 years that I kept saying, because I usually coach 2 teams. I wasn't coaching 2 teams. And because I was like, okay, my little Dena is my last one. She graduated in 2012. So I told my wife, you know, we've been doing it for a while, and that I was going to retire with little Dena in 2012. So that was like my real plan, because I wasn't doing 2 teams. And then the crazy thing is that we had a player family like saying, hey, would you come out and just help us in our tryout? And I went out and I helped them in their tryout. And in that tryout, this 12-year-old kid came to the tryout. And not only that it made me continue in softball, it's Megan Faraimo. And so, man, that 12-year-old kid, like I was literally, I was like, I wasn't coach, like I'm coaching 2 teams. So there's no retirement right now, because I'm coaching 9th graders and 18s. So I literally was not coaching another team. I was only coaching 18 goals, because that was supposed to be like the story. Like, okay, we did this, and I was a CO at the same time. So I had my retirement. My wife had her retirement. So in that thought process of that was going to be the game plan. But you could tell at 12 years old that Megan was going to be special, and she wanted to be a Corona Angel. And I was like, okay, man. And so that's what I said, is that, man, so from that point that I knew, like, it's crazy to say in the first day that I was going to coach her and I was going to be with her for the rest of her life. So, I mean, that's just it's a crazy thought process. But like I say, man, she always talks about what I did for her, but really at the end of the day, it's really kind of what she did for me.
Well, I'd say she's gone on to have a really great career. And I'm going to thank Megan Faraimo for keeping Marty Tyson in the game. That's important too. Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned you kind of briefed over it on the letters, but between, you know, one of the first times I heard about Marty Tyson was from your alumni, who talked about how much they love you, going back to this famous Christmas party that you have. And I'm pretty sure you also write some letters to your seniors. So, which I love, because if people are watching Marty Tyson, like, man, this coach is hard on his players, but
Right.
really, this guy loves his players, and then his players know that. Can you share the Christmas party story and the letters?
Yeah, well, see, what it is this though, with the letters, is that it's always this, right? And it's so it's sad, but it's the truth. You're only going to be judged on the last week of your season. That's really it is. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, where did you finish? So what I started doing was every nationals, I would write them an apology letter. Like, okay, I know this week I'm going to holler at you. I know this going to this and the other, but I want you to focus on the year that you had and just understanding that you had a great year. You've done this, you accomplished this, you accomplished this. And during this week, when I get on you, I want you to go back and read that letter, like what you mean to me, what type of year that you had. And so then, man, it's just something that we do. It's something that, well, that I do is that, so we want to make sure that, and you know, it's crazy, like, you know, and you look like these things like Megan that has a box where she got every letter I've written. You know what I mean? Like, man, this is like these kids still have the letters, and you start under Morgan Stuart, like, man, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like the what it is. And so that is just part of our program. And like I said, I don't make all the coaches do. I don't know if, who does it or whatever, but I just do it for my players, is that, and making sure that they don't let, no matter how the last week ends, that it doesn't define, softball doesn't define who you are as a person. It happens. And I think that's the thing that players, not just females, but players, were, it's, softball's great, but it's not the end all. And so then you start understanding, like, man, that you don't judge yourself as a person of how well a softball player you are. And so you start understanding that thought process of, and it just is come on. And then we started doing the Christmas party. It's just all the teams, we come together. We started in Pomona Mining Company as a small team, and our Christmas party each year we've grown. And so now we do it at the Sheridan and the fairgrounds, and it's over, 1,100 people. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, so man, the Christmas party, the seniors give senior speeches. So man, it's, people have waited, COVID took that away for us for 2 years. So this is the first class in the last 3 years because of COVID and the restrictions that had senior speeches. So these kids we had a lot of kids who've been here since they were 9 years old, and they've been listening to all these speeches, and they had to be able to share their senior speech. So that's what kind of makes it special, like in that, man, like going out and speaking on just how you grew up in this program, because these kids have absolutely grown up in this program.
I love that. And you don't see that as often anymore either these days, right? Where
Yeah.
you're starting a program and ending a program. So
Yeah.
it's nice to actually see that progression, and you get to carry that athlete all the way through.
Yeah, so you get to see them, like, man, from getting their driver's license, the braces on, braces off, car, you know what I mean? All those things, you know what I mean? You start understanding of how and what they do. Yes, absolutely.
I want to ask you to share this story, if you're okay with it, because I remember talking about being a correctional officer. Was it 28 years? Is that what? Did I get
Yes,
that correct?
28 years.
At a male prison. And you used to ask your male prisoners certain questions, right? And you asked it that so that you could help your own female athletes. Can you share a couple of those stories?
Yeah, well, like I say, I worked at ASA for like 12 years, and so, and understanding, like, in ADSEG, neither you're dealing with the worst of the worst, or those guys who need protection, from the general population. And so, people who hurt women need protection in prison. So that's just the bottom line. And so one of the things that I asked the guy, I was like, man, he's a predator. And so I'm like, and being a predator, like, how does your mind think, you know, because I'm serving him breakfast every day. He's in the cell locked up for 23 hours a day to get out for yard 1 hour a day. So he's in the cell. And so I would go, I'd have to, I'm feeding them. I get their, I give them the food. Then I have to get the food back. So all the things that you're doing, you're dealing with these people every single day. And so, man, I'm like, okay, well, what makes you think? What makes you tick? And so, man, that one of the guys has said that, well, the biggest thing is one, and then it's affected me how I raised my daughters and what they would wear. He was like, man, how I picked girls out was that I would pick them out like who's going to be the least amount of work. So, man, like, hey, what are they wearing? Like, hey, what are you wearing? So, man, like, bro, so that was tough in my household, like, to hear that. So I was like, oh, man, you know, like, it's sad, like, you know, like these guys, and they're like, okay, well, man, maybe a nun would be off limits. No, the problem is the nun have all the clothes. You know what I mean? They're not thinking that way. So they're not thinking religious way. And so you start understanding that thought process that, okay, well, man, the person that I can do the least amount of work is the person that have the least amount of clothes on is the person I'm going to pick. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay. And then the second thing that he said was that, like, you know, you can pick the who's not going to put up a fight. You don't want to have to tussle and have a big fight on your hands with someone you're going to do this to. And he was like, well, I always, by scanning the room, I would look in their eyes and see, like, someone who would stare back at you. It looks like they may have more fight in them than someone who couldn't make strong eye contact. They could not make strong eye contact, then those are the ones that's probably not going to put up a fight. And so that's what I tell everybody, like, so if you're a Corona Angel, dude, that's one of the things that I'm like, oh no, strong eye contact is an absolute must. Like, no way. You don't even know, like, you know what I mean? And half the time, I like, when people first come over to our program, I'm like, I tell them, like, just, dude, strong eye contact is it's absolutely, you don't know what that signifies. You as a female, and me coaching women and young girls, is that you understand that strong eye contact, man, determines a lot of things, how people, even perception is reality, right? So what do people perceive? And so that's what I tell people, that thought process. You know what I mean?
Valuable life lessons there.
Yeah, exactly. And so, man, that's you know, it's something near and dear to me. And I want to say her name. Her name is Amina Tella. Dude, you want to talk about a girl who learned that, and like, man, she's a junior now in Dena. She's a pitcher. She's going to LMU. You want to talk about a fierce, like, stare back at you. Oh my God, bro, that little girl there, bro, she got the meanest stare back. Like, hey, dude, like, man, we'll have stare down contests, like, who's gonna blink first? You know what I mean? Like, that little girl there, man, what a tough cookie. You know what I mean? So you start understanding it.
I love it. Well, we're going to talk about some of your Corona Angel players who want to put you on the spot later, but what about, you know, there's so many life lessons that you're teaching through. Some of those, I've heard you say a couple things that I think are interesting that are good for parents. One, you carry a large roster, and there's a reason for that, which some people might be like, he's got so many players in the dugout. The other is, I've heard you say the season starts bracket play in Colorado. Can you explain, you know, why you do those two things and what that means in the development of your players?
And I tell people, like, until you have these people haven't went through it. And so, you know, Dena's 38 years old, going to be 39. And one of the things that like Gary Henning, great coach, amazing coach, national champion coach. Well, man, we had like 14 or 15 when Dena was a senior on Gary's team. And man, we got to Washington and it was 23 players, Teresa Wilson. And man, that Dena started off as she hit a home run her first college at bat, and you know, man, and it's so funny. She kept telling me that she was getting hits, and then I was telling Dena, like, dude, you got to check with these people because online on your stats, you only got one hit. You know, she was totally lying the whole time that she was getting a hit there too. I was 2 for 3, this, that, and the other. And so then, man, we followed Dena because I was in Hawaii. Then I went to Tucson and she was absolutely struggling. And Dena was on a full ride and she had a walk-on starting ahead of her. And man, then in Tucson, I was literally, we were there for 3 days, maybe at least 3 days. And I was ducking Teresa Wilson the whole time, just ducking Teresa Wilson, embarrassed, you know what I mean? Just embarrassed. And Teresa said something that set our standard to this day, but it really, as I tell everybody who is in this organization, it was for the kids in my home. And so Teresa Wilson told me, when Dena learns she has to hit to play, it was in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. When Dena learns she has to hit to play, she's going to be okay. And I said that day on my way back home, we was coming from Tucson, that will be the last coach to ever tell me that as a parent, that my daughter would have to learn that she has to hit to play. So man, when we started the Corona Angels, Dena was 14. So you start understanding it. So Victoria was 9. And man, even in 18 and under, that first year in 18, I had 18 players on the team. Because like, man, as you start understanding that thought process, like, and so that was really for Victoria and making sure that my kids weren't the best players on the team, that they had to understand about fighting and understanding that thought process of what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so then, you know, again, every year it did. Now you look at so many players. I think my players excel, like we excel in college. You know, like I tell you, we do weekly things. Like, I don't know what it's gonna probably, it's over now anyway, today's Monday. But I love the college season because what it does is it shows like what our kids are doing. We've had a player of the week every week in college. We've had a player of the week every week that the season has been going. We had 4 players in 1 week. You know what I mean? And so and it's the demographic of everywhere. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. We had a kid from Hawaii, Rutgers. Hell, Kylie Sand was back-to-back Big Ten Player of the Week from Rutgers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And Kaneda was the Freshman of the Week in Nebraska last week in the Big Ten. And so, you know, Megan Faraimo and it does what she does. And so you start understanding that thought process, you know, and that long journey, you know what I mean? And so that's the whole deal right there. That's where the rosters come from, is that at the end of the day, you look at these rosters of college, especially now that the COVID is going on and this, that, and the other, is that the kids that they're, you know, got these small rosters, then they go to college. And like, you know who else before this even COVID, and we used to do, I sent a lot of my kids to him, was Clint Myers. You know what I mean? Bro, oh my God, Arizona State, he would carry, I remember Leslie Rogers graduated in 2007. Leslie Rogers, and she excelled there, you know, won a national championship and all those things. And she was like, Marty, the other kids, because Clint was in 2007, had 27 players. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's, man, him and Robert Wagner, man, my kids, they just excelled there. You know what I mean? And just the whole environment of it. You know what I mean?
Thanks for the memory. That was 2008 when they beat us for the national championship.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hello. Yeah. Leslie Rogers batting second. Is that hello? Absolutely, man.
Marty, is it when you, and by the way, when you mentioned your daughter, Victoria, or Tori, she's the head coach at Howard University right now. Was it Tori? You told a story about talking about, hey, I don't want my kid to be the best player on the team, or they have to learn, right? They learn their role, they compete, they got to hit to be in the lineup. Was it Tori that you had go knock on the door of a coach and say that she wasn't going to play? You told a story at one point of one of your daughters. Was that Tori?
It was Tori when we were when she was a freshman, because we had Molly Hill, our #1 pitcher, was recovering from knee surgery. And so, bro, we were short that year. And so we're starting in Arizona, and we're playing Northwestern, who was like #1 at the time. And I'm like, man, I'm a parent, and I'm like, Victoria's pitching against Northwestern as a freshman. And I'm like, dude, I've got my head down and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, what the hell? You know, she threw 5 strong innings, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And I asked Ron Revelle, like, why did you pitch Victoria? And she says, Tori came and knocked on her door and said she wanted the ball. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude. And so that's what I say about that mentality of what we try to raise them, is that understanding, like, man, are you crazy? You knocked on the door and you were a freshman throwing every bit of 59. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, like, dude. So that's what I say about mindsets of the kids. You know what I mean? Is that it's easy. See, without one or the other, like, that's why the kids who are super talented, they excel at the next level. The Rachels and the Shays and all these guys, and Stephanie Rosa, Amber Freeman. I can just, they just go. It's that because they're talented, but the part of it goes hand in hand. You can be talented, but you don't have that killer, that mindset. Or you could have the mindset, but not as talented. Tori was that kid who had a killer mindset, but not just probably as talented as Rachel. You know what I mean? But man, I remember she pitched against Arizona State that weekend. I'm like, dude, this is 2007. Exactly. Caitlin Cochran, all those other, man, that lineup was loaded. Are you crazy? You know what I mean? Yes, exactly. Hello. And here's a kid that is a crazy thing is she never got a start for me. You know what I mean? Like, she never got a start for me.
Your daughter.
Yeah, she never got a start for me at Nationals. She never started for me one game at Nationals. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about, like understanding the thought process of and being around, finding your way to still be a leader. Like, she was a leader of that ball club, and you know, man, you got Leah Macon, you know what I mean, and Stephanie LaRosa, Brittany LaRosa. So man, and you start understanding that thought process. And so man, she was Jessica Hall, all these kids. Oh, that's Dominique. With all those. So Dominique was with my 2010 class, because she was the same thing, like their roles. You know what I mean? Like, man, nah, bro, you ain't nobody giving nothing to nobody. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to earn it. And so that's the biggest thing that we do here.
That's so great. I think Tori's leadership has paid off in her.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the coaching ranks. Marty, I want to switch. So when you talk about COVID, talk about 2020, well, that's when we started the Alliance. And you were actually one of our last pieces of the puzzle to bring together for the Alliance. But I'm just interested, we haven't visited this, but why did you become a part? Why are the Corona Angels a part of the Alliance Fast Pitch? And what do you want to see out of all of us working together with the Alliance?
Well, I'm going to say that, and again, it's I started thinking this way, like, is this just, like I said, again, nothing against nobody, but I'm saying in Southern California, when, because I was kind of like the last person to commit to it, was that in the end, man, I'm kind of a loyal dog in that regard. But when I started thinking about, all right, well, in Southern California, that when you start saying, okay, Micardo, firecrackers, bat busters, I'm like, I'm saying in my perspective, like, just being straight up with everybody out there, like, I'm like, okay, well, all right, well, you look at who's going to be in Southern California. I said Southern California. I'm like, okay, well, there's me, there's Bruce, Choppers. I'm talking about the people that in PGF. And I'm like, in Southern California, I'm like, at the end of the day, I kind of still want my kids to, like Izzy Gachatan at LMU. She was an in and out starter for us. She's the number 3 batter for LMU. And one of the things is that the kids, because my kids play against the best competition in the country week in and week out. So then those are the same kids that you're going to face in college. And so these kids see and understand the thought process of what it takes, where some kids never see these elite players. You know, you never see the Oklahoma kids, you never see this kid. Man, we look at everybody like, you know, we have a good brotherhood rivalry with Scott of the Bombers. So we're going to play Scott every year. You know what I mean? We usually do. You know what I mean? And so we always going to wind up playing Scott somewhere. And the same thing with Kevin Shelton, all those guys, is that our kids are playing the best players. And so that was a big part of it. Like, okay, well, man, at the end of the day, if I won a national championship, like I said, I took third, I took fifth, but if I win a national championship, I want to say that I beat the best that was there out there. And so at the end of the day, like I say again, that I met at Butterfield Park. You guys don't know that. I met Mike Stith at Butterfield Park and in Corona. And like I say, I sat down with him and I said, man, you know, just, you know, again, like the perception of everybody was like Mike and Tony, he's trying to take away from everything, this, that, and the other. And I was like, man, at the end, you know, again, because I don't really follow a lot of people in this. And so I kind of, you know, like just tipping the scales of what was going to happen or this, that, and the other. And I told Mike that I was going to come. But I was like, dude, it's got to all be for the right reasons. I still feel that the two people to play for the national championship should have a return berth. I think that. And I say that at all the time. And I say is this. And the other thing that it did is it's made our kids, it's changed the game, because then like this, right? Even as managers, like if parents are listening to this, what this has done is you've never had to show your hand to your parents until national championships, because all of us already had bursts. And not only that, some of us have multiple bursts, you know what I mean, to the national championship. So you never had to qualify. This is brought back where kids are playing competitive. They have to earn it. You know what I mean? Nothing's given. And that's part of the game that I love. And we're back to traveling, you know what I mean? Like Indiana, like, you know what I mean? Like the kids the girls the players they haven't had this, like they're enjoying going from different states and doing these things and experiencing different things of what we're doing and playing in elite stadiums. You know what I mean? So man, you start understanding that of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So that's, I say the game, I'm making the game about the players and also getting the college players to come. I'm so proud of that. You know what I mean? Of having our teams playing, and they were playing against the Olympic team. All those things of the big picture of what Alliance is about. And then so you have all of us coming together, and it's like, it's so funny, right? Because we're a startup company, and I'm going to say that. So like you brought up the Alliance, so is that everybody thinks we're making a ton of money. You know what I mean? Like if everybody knew, like, hey, wait a minute, like to get going, we had to give more money to finish the first year. That's a true story. Like, you know, it's so funny. Like, you know, it's so funny, like that how the perception of everybody is, and this is what I say this, right? I'm going to say this in the Alliance. I'm going to say the person I've got to know the best is Tony Rico. And if everybody else would got to know, like, oh, he's a money guy this, a money guy this, Tony Rico is a great businessman in that regard. But like I say, just the quality of understanding the thought processes of how he thinks, like I say, we all have our own strengths and our weaknesses, and you, like, you're like the referee, you're like the person that keeps us all in. That's what I tell everybody. There's basically, the Alliance is a bunch of softball coaches, you know what I mean, with Jamie, like, okay, this way, you know what I mean, and understanding that thought process. So we've all got to work together and doing those things. And so that's, at the end, we all want the best product. We want for for the game to grow. And I think that it is growing, and you start understanding the thought process of what we're doing. And that's a huge part of the alliance. And it's the sums of its parts. And so all of us are making it into one, and it's a voice across the whole country. And it's just not one voice or two voices or three voices. It's the different leagues, and everybody like, okay, well, man, what are we doing, and understanding the thought process of those things.
It's so fun. One day we'll have to record our meetings and all the personalities, and me refereeing all the coaches. But
absolutely.
Marty, I'm gonna finish it up with just first name that comes to mind. Okay, so no right or wrong answer, just kind of the first name that comes to mind, or names. What's the best Corona Angels team of all time?
Oh, without doubt. 2011. And we didn't win it. Because, like I said again, I want you to realize this. Well, we like I say, this is the reason. Like Rachel, I should have brought Rachel up, but I didn't. 2011, we lost 12-11 to Ali Carter, the two-time Pac-12 Pitcher of the Year. We scored 11 runs off her. I had Amber Freeman, who was a Pac-12 Player of the Year. Stephanie DeRosa. Man, we were loaded. Man, we were absolutely loaded. We lost 2 games, and the lowest game that they scored, we lost 4-5. We lost 5-4. And so that's what I'm saying, is that, man, that team was absolutely loaded. And so as you start understanding those things of players, and I say like this, of all the players, because I've only said this to one player in my coaching career, is that, you know, we've always had like a little bit of bad luck in that regard, is that, you know, I wouldn't bring back college players. You know, I didn't bring back college players at the beginning. And so then in 2008, when we played Hurricanes, Marty, they beat us in the championship game. But that I only had 2 college players on that team, but still was, Aaliyah Macon and Morgan Stewart. And so, but before them, I wasn't bringing back college kids. So my kids were Southern Illinois Force, Jerry them, come on. Yeah,
they beat us. They beat us in 04, Marietta. I remember that.
Hey, man. We beat them in Colorado. Then I was so dumb because Gary got me, because we beat them in Colorado. Courtney Martinez, my first 18 team. That, like I said, just about wins. Everybody looks at wins. No, those kids started our program. Imagine, we went from 1400 nationals, dude, and then we decided after nationals and normal, I went from 14s to 18s. And I'm like, I did a tryout, and there was hardly no one showed up for the tryout for the 18s. So, because I was bringing my 14 team up. So Courtney came, and I say, man, you're on the team, because that's who showed up. And that team, we wound up taking 5th in Georgia, and we lost to Southern Illinois Force. But that was the 4th game. We beat them 3 straight. And they had the pitcher who was like the freshman pitcher of the year from the SEC. They were all college kids.
I remember that. They beat us.
All college kids. Yes, all college kids. And here we are, Brittany DeRosa is a sophomore, Stacy Nelson, you know what I mean? Like, man, hello, Stacy Nelson was a junior. You did, so that's what I tell everybody, like, you start understanding that thought process of the thought. And we were, dude, I literally, I don't have it now, but I literally stole the bracket. I stole it because we were the 4 undefeateds left. There's only 4 undefeateds left. And out of all these guys, we were the only California team left in the winner's bracket. We were the only California team left in the winner's bracket. And man, I took the bracket. You
Marty Tyson stole the bracket.
Yeah, I just took the bracket, bro. I'm like, dude, we took the bracket. And so, like I said again, that we've had some great people and great players. And I say, man, that you knew kids were going to be great, but I'm going to say, I always say this because I've only told this to one player. And since I've been coaching, that the year that I thought we were gonna like win it, because we had done well when we were juniors. We played a national championship and lost to Gary them and the PGF, and we're going to be seniors. Rachel Garcia and Shay Knight and them. We're like, okay, we're gonna win this. And so the crazy thing is, Rachel made the junior national team, and they took Rachel, but then Rachel tore ACL, and so then we had a freshman come up to 18s because Rachel was, and we didn't know what we were gonna do, and so Megan, as a ninth grader, as a 14-year-old, pitched us the fifth. And in that, before we started that tournament, this is the first time I ever told any player, and she wasn't even a pitcher. I says, man, all right, we don't got Rachel, and I'm gonna tell you right now, we can't depend on a 14-year-old, but we did. I told Shay Knight that you're gonna have to win. I don't know what game you're gonna have to win, but you are gonna have to win a game for me, for us. You're gonna have to, and it was a cruiser game. Megan got beat up a little bit. We're down 3-0, and Shay came up and scored, drove in 4 of our 5 runs, and we won 5-4, and we beat the Cruisers. You know what I mean? And yes, exactly. And Megan, we lost to the Athletics, and they picked up the girl, oh my God, she went to Tennessee when Athletics made to the championship. Megan lost to her 1-0 as a 14-year-old. Marty, I can't think of her name, but anyway, like I say, we've had some great teams and great players and in those careers of what they've done. But like I say, it's been a good ride, you know what I mean? And so you start understanding the thought process of each time I say, man, my players make me famous. I tell my kids, like, I'm not, the Corona Angels are famous, but it's my players that make me famous. And I tell these kids, I tease them, I'm like, oh, when you get to college, I'm probably not going to be famous anymore. You know what I mean? Because it's my players who do make me famous. And so that's what I say is, again, is that it's their exploits, it's what they do. And you start understanding that thought process of how, and you start figuring out those things.
Speaking of those players, and you've mentioned a lot of them, who's the most athletic player you've ever coached?
Like I say, but it was a while ago, years ago, but Brittany Rosa, probably the best athlete we've had. You know what I mean? She graduated in 2006. But man, run, throw, just pitch, do just flat out do everything. You know what I mean? You start understanding that. But man, Jessica Stroggins, you can put her up in there as far as athletes. Oh my God. You know what I mean? It's just, we've been blessed to have some great athletes in this program. You know what I mean? And so it just goes without saying. And Stephanie Rosa Stephanie Rosa was our number 3 batter, and Amber Freeman was our number 4 batter. And we always tell the story. Amber had that big ass brace on and want to know why she ain't the number 3 batter. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, with 2 outs, Stephanie could steal second, and there's a run for you. So it's like, man, it's those and those kids who are Tatum Edwards, absolutely phenomenal. Played outfield, run, throw, do. Oh my God, man! You just see those kids, but all of them just killers. And a person that's a good athlete is also Rachel Garcia. You know what I mean? And you start understanding the thought process, like athletes. You know what I mean? You start understanding that thought process is where we really push our pitchers to be athletic.
That's where I figured that could go many ways. What about the biggest surprise?
Sam Williams, Iowa State. Like everybody, after her freshman year, everybody in the country was reaching out to me about Sam Williams. You know what I mean? And you start understanding that thought process. And so I always tell people about there's a bridge to this. You know, I coach the 9th graders. Dena coaches the 16. And then I coach the 18s. So there's a Tyson bridge. We can't deny that part. But like Jada Cecil, she never, and that's what I say about, she played for Shanita her whole time. And then I got her as a senior. And so in that whole year that she only got 1 year, like I tell all these people, like, you know, you'll see kids in this program, I've coached them like 3 of their 4 years of high school. Like, because I'm the 9th grade coach. So I get them in the 9th grade, and that's where I kind of like, all right, who's gonna go where? That's why I do the 9th grade, like, so I can weed it out, like get all the ideas of how they think, what they do. And Sam Williams was another one. I didn't coach in the 9th grade, and I got her, you know, in 18 level. And so, man, it was like, you know, it's a different kind of fire, you know what I mean? And so you got to feel that fire a little bit. And so she never, in the 9th grade, it gives you an opportunity, like, okay, I get him a little bit, just a little bit, you know what I mean? I get how he is. So you get a prep year. Well, those kids who ain't never got a prep year, when you get to 18s, like get to 18s, and this your first year, like being around me and how I am, man, it's a shock, you know what I mean? Like, what the hell, you know what I mean? And so you start understanding that thought process. And I tell everybody, Dena's more like a college coach, because man, I'm in their butt a lot, but in college you got to motivate yourself. You know what I mean? And so that's when we start understanding that thought process.
What about most challenging player?
Most challenging player, she'd be up there. I would say BD Bates, because man, she was another great athlete and doing all the things, like just teaching the game too, that she was going to be an All-American and she was going to go on and win a national championship, and start understanding those thought process, because she was another one that came into the program at the gold level. So she never got no prepping, no nothing. And so you start understanding. And then like she came from, you know, a team, I'm not going to say the team, but she came from the team, and like she was the best player. Then she came into our team, you know what I mean? And that, while I'm online, make sure that I said Brooke Phipps, who went to Fresno State. Unbelievable athlete, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, she ran the 40 like a guy, you know what I mean? Just unbelievable, like unbelievable. Brooke Phipps, you know what I mean? Just unbelievable. And
all right,
so,
oh, sorry.
No.
I was gonna say, last question, I'm gonna switch it. Best player you've ever coached against in travel ball?
And I always say this. Taylor Lorenz, Florida. She's absolutely, like I say, because you got to do it in these things. That's the best hitter, and then the best pitcher. My God.
Lorenz. Huh? Was it Lorenz? Is that?
Yeah, Lorenz. Amanda Lorenz was the best hitter, and Monica Abbott was good. You know what I mean? So yeah, exactly. So hello. So as I say, pitchers, and you start understanding that thought process of the people that you're not surprised who they are. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, Amanda Lorenz, man, what a tough out, dude. Just a tough ass out. You know what I mean? Just she was. And so, like I said again, yeah, absolutely. And you start understanding it.
Well, Marty, I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us.
All right, absolutely. Thank you.